want to talk about is, number one, you need to stick to your guns. And what I mean by this is companies, when they're talking about their brand during these challenging economic times, what they don't have is a vision of who they are, what they want to be, and how they want to be better than the competition. So when you're talking about your company, you got to figure out how you want to be better than anybody else. Next thing I want to do is I want to talk about controlling North 40. And this is the part of the ranch that's up there, that's a little farther away, but you got to figure out what space you want to own. And you got to figure out, it's not necessarily something that you've been or owned before, but you've got to go out there and you got to figure out how you're going to own that particular space. People ask me, it was really interesting. I was talking to a guy the other day, and he asked me, he goes, what's the number one thing from a marketing or branding perspective that I can do that's going to be the most effective utilization of my money? And I said, you got to figure out what space you want to own first, and how and why you're better than the competition. He goes, no. Is it email? Is it redoing my website? Is it mailers? What's the tactics that's going to be the most thing? And I go, no, the most effective thing it can be is, number one, figure out why you're better than the competition. Are you? And he goes, no, not really, and I don't really care about that. I want to know what's the most effective tactic. And I think it's a combination between having a good strategy, but also figuring out good, effective utilization of the tactics necessary to reach your goals and objectives. And so what I say is, you got to own a space, you got to take a look at the competition. You got to see what they're doing. You also got to identify what makes you better than the competition. Most companies, in fact, about 95% of the companies that we come in contact with, they say exactly what they do. And usually it's something like knowledge. We have great experience. What's another great one that they like to say?
Customer service.
Customer service. We all give the best customer service, don't we? Right? What else do we all say?
Best technology.
We have the best technology. How about our people? How many of us have lame people? And so we got to figure out what makes us better than the competition. And it's not the typical things like customer service, knowledge, or experience, or technology. All right? We got to figure out and understand what our customers, what they're looking for. All right? We got to understand and identify not only currently what space we own, but space we want to own. And I don't care whether you're a service company or a product company, what we have to do is we have to figure out whether it be a process or a technology, a new way of packaging what we do, a new way of delivering a service. We have to figure out something that separates us and gives us a space that we can call our own. You've got to continue to look over your shoulder and see what everybody else is doing. You can't stay stagnant. You have to continue to evolve and reinvent yourself on a regular basis. You've got to be innovative. You've got to be creative. You've got to figure out what's going to be the next big thing that your targets are looking for. You've got to have fun. You've got to be able to craft and put together an expectation of what a brand experience is going to look like if people choose to do business with you. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. It's not necessarily, telling them, here's what we do. No, you have to paint a mental picture in your target market's mind, if they do business with you, what it's going to look like. You got to put on your hat and saddle up. What most companies do, I would say more than half the companies we come in contact with, they have great ideas, but they can't execute. They can't ever get off the business plan and get to implementation. Okay? And so what you got to do, you got to put it in action. I love this quote. There are two kinds of people, them going somewhere and them going nowhere. Every good company that has a brand and really wants to position themselves and be different than the competition needs to have a brand champion. And your brand champion needs to be an executive. It needs to be someone high up in the company to take the reins and to lead your company in this new direction. You got to challenge your employees to ride for the brand. You're going to appoint strong ranch hands that understand it, know what this experience is all about, and know how to make this experience become a reality in how you do business each and every day. From the telegraph to Twitter, you got to figure out how you're going to integrate your message in today's electronic world. There are so many different mediums out there. You got to figure out what's going to work and what's not going to work. You got to understand the availables and mediums available to you. You got to understand and take advantage of free online tools. You got to figure out the most effective way to reach your customers, your targets, your prospects. It takes 7 to 12 touches when you touch a prospect so they can get to know who you are. That's what it does, 7 to 12 touches. Most companies give up after 2 or 3 touches. Most people don't even have a shot in the world of getting business because they don't have enough touches to a big enough realm. Number 7, you got to drive to Bonanza. I want results when I fight. Frank James, brother of Jesse James. You got to figure out, how you're going to make it happen, how you're going to produce tangible results. You got to develop your value proposition, your promise to your customers, if they do business with you, what it's going to be. You got to figure out the activities you need to get you to your goals and objectives. If you have a strong brand and you position yourself today, when things pick up and things get less competitive, you're going to be able to charge more for your brand, for your product, for your service. You're going to own market share. You're going to be a true innovator in your space. People are going to call you up. If you have a strong brand, you have a strong position, people will call you up because they want to do business with you. So you got to commit to a vision. You got to figure out what space you're going to own. You got to be the next big thing. You got to make it memorable. You got to choose a brand champion. You got to be able to integrate in today's electronic world. You got to figure out what that looks like. You got to make it happen. You got to produce results. And you got to track your success. And whether it be email, whether it be voicemail, whether it be direct mail, whether it be a blog that they want to read, you got to figure out your target market, what appeals to them, and what do they respond to. And I tell most of my clients, you've got to do it all. You've got to do multiple touches, and you got to do multiple things because everybody has a different way that they respond to. I hear all the time, well, we use email. And email used to be really effective, and now it's really not effective. It can be, but you've got to integrate it with a call. You've got to integrate it with a mail. You've got to integrate it with a trade show. You've got to integrate all these different mediums and put them all together in a plan that successfully touches enough times your prospects so they'll respond and get to know who you are. And then most of us are leaders as well too. And I want us to think about how we as leaders within our own companies could be a brand champion, how we could get the people within our companies to understand the value promise that we as a company need to create, but then how as a company are we going to be able to deliver on that? Like that American Express operator that says, how can I make this a great experience? How can I call you up tomorrow and follow up with you to make sure you had a great experience and that all your problems were taken care of from us? So I want each and every one of us as leaders to think about those 2 questions. How and why are we better and more unique, and how can we effectively and clearly and concisely communicate that, first and foremost, and then secondly, how we as brand champions could go back to our companies and be a good brand champion and be able to effectively communicate what it is, what we're doing, what we're all about, and how do we get everybody within the company trained about what that is and how we can make that become a reality. And so we as leaders, we can't assume everybody knows. We have to assume that everybody doesn't know. And we have to assume that we've got to be the brand champions, and we have to be the ones to train them, to educate them, and to figure out how we're going to make our brands come alive, especially in these cloudy economic times. And thanks for coming, okay?